So my friend Candace is visiting New York City and she decides to go to Starbucks to get a cup of coffee. Now, if you've never been to Starbucks, and I don't know how you've lived this long without having been to Starbucks, you'll probably know that sometimes the baristas like to get a little creative with the names they put on the cup to tell whose coffee it is. So she gets to the front. Hey, Candace gets the cup. And what does it say on it? Anus. That's right. A-N-U-S. Anus. Posted on Facebook. Everyone's like, OMG, can't believe they put that on your cup. OMG. Me, in my infinite immaturity, decide instead to go with a different kind of comment and write, all in caps, as a comment, that coffee must taste like Casey Palmer. Welcome to Chatting with Casey with your host, Casey Palmer. Episode 6. Everybody wants to be fabulous. What's up, y'all, and welcome to another Chatting with Casey, the podcast that's about family, food, fashion, and faith, and travel, and tech, and just about anything that comes to mind while I run my mouth on social media. If you're joining us for the first time, your timing could not be better, as perhaps Toronto's most active dad blogger finishing up the Father's Day rush means I can focus on all the content I've had waiting in the wings and earn myself the vacation my family so sorely wants me to take. This past weekend was a busy one, with me getting some real talk off my chest on what it means to be a dad and having my eyes opened on the topic in the process, and the Carters finally convincing me to sign up for Tidal by dropping a joint Beyonce Jay-Z album. Yeah. Add that to church, a fun fair, and a barbecue where I had more than anyone's fair share of steak, hashtag carnivorous. Let's just say that I'm starting the week off a little slow. There's some exciting news, though. I finally got the podcast on Spotify. This is massively hype for me, as I'm a huge believer in smart home tech, and having my podcast on only some of the services available to Smart Assistant just felt wrong. You can also check out the new Google Podcast app that just dropped if you are on Android, so that you can check it out there as well. But, now we're here. I have another one officially off my list, and this is great. So next step will be put an app together after recording a bunch more episodes for the millions of people on the app and Play stores who aren't blessed with podcasts in their lives, but one step at a time. So now that you're all up to date, how about we get to our main event? So I truly don't know how single parents do it. And after successfully stirring up a hornet's nest on Father's Day, you can be damn sure I've learned to appreciate them even more than I did before. With two of us here raising our kids, I'm sure there's plenty either of us takes for granted at any given time. But when things seem impossible, at least we know there's someone else in the house who gets it. And not everyone has that. But what people don't understand about single parents is that they have just as many different situations as married folks do. You have your divorcees, widows and widowers, those who are single by choice. You can't look at a single parent and just assume that you know their story. It's only through conversation that you might possibly learn and change some of your views. And that's what my friend Jemmie did in a talk we had over lunch at Scatterbush. In the time we spent together, we got to talk about what her life's like raising her girls, what it's like co-parenting not with her father but with his wife in his new relationship, and just how she manages to balance all that with her love for travel. It was a pleasure having Jemmie on the show, and I hope you enjoy her segment as much as I did. Check it out. All right, y'all, how you doing? It's Casey here, chilling at a Scatterbush with my friend Jemmie. For some context and history, her and I worked together for about a year and so. We know a lot of the same people, and I'm not going to take too much away from her story to let her tell it herself, but she's here to talk about all sorts of things in her world, including co-parenting with a parent that might not be the actual biological parent of the kids that she's co-parenting. A lot of words. I put it all together. It just came off the head. How you doing, Jemmie?
I'm great, Casey. How are you?
I am good. So welcome to Chatting with Casey.
Thank you. It's nice being here.
Cool.
Nice spread you got.
Yeah, we're in front of some buco bites and some garlic parmesan frites and zucchini fritti. How is it so far?
It's pretty good.
Cool. So, what are we talking about today?
I guess life and how it throws you some curves, and you just kind of got to make lemonade out of those lemons.
Okay, that sounds fair. I always like to say that I never know how single parents do it. Um, my listeners know, and I'm sure there's gonna be some new listeners because you're gonna send out to your people. But I have kids who are 4 and 2, two boys, little guys, full of energy, full of life. They are my everything and also my every annoyance at the same time. And it's already it's challenging enough trying to get them to soccer and swimming and do all the things and feed them and love them and listen to them with two of us there. How do you do it?
It's definitely challenging. So I'll just give you a quick history of my background. I've got two young girls, Jayla and Kira, 12 and 8. I've been basically single parent for I'd say 8 years now. Their dad and I had split prior to giving birth to my second. But you know what? It was a tumultuous time, and it was a time that I had to really kind of jump away from and kind of put myself in another mindset so I can get through it. And I think a lot of single parents could probably relate to that kind of stuff. And everybody's story is different, and it can be extremely dramatic or it can be nice and easy. And I think I've learned a lot from this experience. And I'm super happy and super comfortable and confident about where I am at now and the choices that I made. I think that's a lot of things that parents, single parents especially, kind of struggle with is, are you making the right choices for your kids? If you're with a partner, that's great, but now you're two different households. Are you making those right decisions, and what's the center of those decisions, right? So yeah, so that's my background, and honestly, having somebody on the other end completely helps. Like I said, my story is a bit different because I don't really speak to their father. However, he does have a great partner that obviously that's like a weird situation because who wants to talk to the wife, right?
True.
Right? I mean, that's a typical societal kind of expectation
Right.
is that the ex is gonna hate the wife or have some sort of like some sort of feelings towards her, let's just
Right.
say. However, I think we did great in terms of understanding that I am not a threat to their relationship, and she is not a threat to my motherhood. So I think that's one of the biggest things. It took us a long time to get there, lots of bumps and bruises. But at the end of the day, when the kids are front and center with the decisions, and we completely understand that life is life and things happen in life, we're a lot more understanding and maybe flexible with life decisions and schedules
Okay.
and the way you kind of want to steer your kids, right?
All right. I mean, it sounds like almost like the similar setup of what any set of parents would want. Is just now it's in two households and broken up a little differently. Do you feel like things are a little different not having the kids around full time and having I guess an on again off again approach to just how you have to handle your week and your time when it
Yeah.
comes down to what you do for your girls?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is different. I think one of the best things about my scenario is I do have the kids pretty much 50-50. I would probably say more of a 60-40 kind of split. I have the kids 4 days out of the week. And I don't have the schedule as 1 week on, 1 week off with weekends switched over, like which most parents do, most single parents or co-parenting folks do. But our schedule works exactly like perfectly this way. We don't live too far apart from each other, and I get a break in the week, and I get 1 day of the weekend. You know what I mean? So. The funny story about this is that I was a little selfish with putting this schedule together because it needed to go around my spin schedule.
Oh man, I respect the spin. Spin is hard. I went to one spin class in my entire life, and I felt like I was swimming in my own sweat by the time I was
Yeah,
done. How you?
yeah.
I don't.
I love
How
it.
is it
I
enjoyable?
love it.
How does people love it?
You
People
know
talk about it all
what?
the time, and I'm like, ah.
You're like, ew, gross. This is how sweaty you want to be 3 days out of the week.
I'm just saying.
But no, honestly, it was a place for me to escape, right? It was a place for me to kill all the problems and all the issues I had to deal with, all the stress that my ex was maybe, kind of compounding on me.
Okay.
And it was the way for me to release it and forget about it because
All right.
in the grand scheme of things, I needed to take care of myself first. So I know that it sounds cliche, but if you don't take care of yourself first, you can't take care of anybody around you.
It's not cliche. You know what? It touches on something I talk about a lot when it comes to a lot of the stuff I write and create as, a dad blogger. What often happens with parents, and one of the reasons why I actually reached out to you is because I know you embody the opposite of this, is that parents forget to take care of themselves in a very meaningful way, right?
Right, right.
So you throw yourself into raising your kids, you throw yourself into everything that goes on for them, and then you're down the road 20, 25 years from now with an empty nest and not knowing what to do with yourself.
Exactly.
Because you've lost all sense of self.
Exactly.
And going into this entire 100% role as a parent. But you need to have you as a person in there.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
If you drop it, then you're just like, who are you anymore?
I see. I mean, I'm second generation here of a Filipino family, and my children are half Jamaican, and both of our parents, we see kind of the sacrifices they've made in order to just make it work, right? And not just to make it work in their marriage for the sake of us, but to make life work, period. Like they sacrifice everything for us, right? And, a lot of people will lose sight. A lot of people would lose sight of what makes them happy. And I think at the nitty gritty of it, what you don't realize is what makes you happy is going to be what makes your kids happy.
100%.
Right.
So, quick question. I'm going to just derail for a second.
Sure.
So, half Filipino, half Jamaican. Have you ever made like a Kumusta Yaman joke?
No.
Because it's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that
But
mix.
you know what? I think that's exactly what I'm going to get my kids to do
Kumusta Yaman.
from now on. Absolutely. They are, they're proud of both heritages. But I
Awesome.
know for sure because they are surrounded a lot, I think, with a lot more Filipino friends.
Okay.
They tend to gravitate to trying to learn the language and whatnot. But I did recently start hearing my kids say things like, yalai, no way, man. And I'm like, wait a second.
I already see them doing reggae on a magic mic. Like, it blends together really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Very cool. What do you think people don't get about single parents? I feel like we have a ton of stigmas about
Right.
single parents. The entire, until recently, you'd hear broken home come up
Right.
a lot and stuff like that. What is it that people do not understand?
I think if done right, and that's kind of subjective, it can be super healthy. Extremely healthy. Like if you think about a marriage or trying to be in a relationship that you are just not on the same page with the other person, imagine the toxicity that surrounds that, and you don't even realize the amount that's being absorbed by your children. It's hard, 100% hard, but it's totally doable, and it's doable when you have a great support system. Like they always say, it takes a village. It really, really does take a village. So I don't have family here, but my family is out in Calgary and in Winnipeg. But his family is super supportive with me, for me, and our kind of situation. So they respect his wishes and they respect my wishes, and they're very open to helping out. I think that's really important. And again, the fact that the kids aren't around so much negativity is just, I think it makes them flourish individually and kind of spiritually and strong inside. They do ask me, I do get the question once in a while, like, why can't we be with you and daddy? I mean, that's going to happen, right? Especially with my youngest, who's never known life differently. Right? So, I tell them, you know what, sometimes people can't be together, and it's better that they're not together. And I think it's important that they see if something isn't working, you got to make the change to make it
True.
work for you,
True.
to make sure you're happy, because life is too damn short.
For real.
Right.
For
and
real.
and like you said, like I'm kind of opposite to kind of the I guess stigma that parents, kind of dissolve themselves with their kids and involve themselves about making their kids happy and everything. 100%. That's my number one. That's my number one thing. But it doesn't mean that I can't be happy as well. So the decisions that I'm making involve them, and if it doesn't involve them, it does take a conversation with them, saying, "Hey, I need some time too," and they completely get it.
Cool.
Right.
All right, we're going to take a break so we can eat.
Yes.
Because I don't want this food getting cold because it all looks delicious. So we'll come back later, and I think we'll talk about things like your travel, because you do a ton of that.
I do.
Yeah, we'll talk about Instagram, because, you and I jam on the gram.
Yes. And,
So-
and we'll definitely talk about all my posts, because, I totally throw up on the Instagram with that.
You guys aren't ready. I'm just saying. All right, we'll be back in a sec. So we got our manja on, and we're talking about a few more things before we let Jemmie back into the wild to go handle life.
Yes.
So one of the things I heard when we started working at the same office together is that you were the photo queen of the joint.
Yes.
And as we got to know each other better and became friends, I noticed that, you were huge into Instagram.
Yep.
And things like that. You're always posting all sorts of hilarious photos and videos about all the adventures and misadventures. you get up
Yes,
to.
absolutely. Life is not just about the adventures.
And then we were talking while eating, because that's what people do when they eat, right?
Right.
They have conversations about our kids and how they relate to social.
Right.
And whether we're going to have them, use accounts and things like that. And I feel like, I don't think we're on opposite sides of the issue here. I feel like my kids are too young to have a well-formed decision on it. Like, I see the future of I do it, so they're probably going to eventually do it in some form. And right now I'm telling their stories for them in a way, and taking pictures and videos and sharing it up. But I would not, I know they're not the maturity level yet to have their own things to use, their own accounts where I could just be like, go forth and share your story. I'm like, no,
Right,
no.
right.
Wait, what are you thinking?
Again, we're not totally opposite, because I do know that the kids will be using it in the future and stuff like that. But I think for me, again, they're 12 and 8. They're too young still. I think parents need to understand the type of kind of media or any sort of influence that they'll see outside of their small little world right now. And we have no control of what they're going to see. We don't have control of what other people post. And I think you have to have a very strong mental and emotional maturity to be able to distinguish, facts and reality, right? Because remember, we use Instagram for our highlight reel for the most point. A lot of people do use that. So that's not real life. Like, they have to really understand that that's not real life. I did have a conversation with them, because all the friends are having social media and they want to know why can't they do it. And that's what it is. I told them, when I start to see that they're not wanting to do things because their friends are doing it, which is kind of the norm, right? But that they can stand their own ground and understand that with the good there comes lots of bad,
right?
And understand that it's good to strive for good stuff and things and experiences like traveling and stuff like that. But there's lots of sacrifices that go behind that, right? And there's a lot of what do the young kids call it these days? FOMO.
FOMO.
A lot of fear of missing out.
Right.
I just taught that to somebody, an elderly, elderly my age.
Okay.
Letting them know that that a lot of people do feel that, and it's not just with the kids. We see full-grown adults experiencing FOMO and having like some mental issues.
It's true.
About, there's comments, I'm sure, and the thing is, I'm super strong about my, I guess, influence and intake and how I react to things. I don't care. That's my kind of MO when it comes to social media. I do it because I love things. I love sharing things. I love sharing my experience, and I kind of want people to be almost just inspired by it, if anything. And the people that know my story either are saying, wow, amazing, she's doing so much and then her life is awesome and all this stuff, and then there's other people's like, how is she doing it? I can't believe she's doing it like that.
Haters.
Like, you know what I mean? So, but luckily I don't care either way, right?
Right.
It's a lot of it is because I'm sharing and I want to share parts of my life. I've even shared my laundry on Instagram. If you look way back.
Why?
Because people think that like I don't like all I do is travel and eat and hang out with my friends and go to the clubs or whatever, or hang out at whatever, do things with my kids. Hi, I have about a couch full of laundry that I fold, so I think I took an Instagram photo of that one time.
Real life with Jemmie.
Yes, exactly. Because that's just how it is. But again,
you do travel quite a bit, though, no?
I do. I make it a priority because it's one of my favorite things to do. I will sacrifice my eating. I will sacrifice my partying in order to make sure that I get to go somewhere.
Okay.
And again, it's kind of segue back to co-parenting. I can only do it because my ex's wife is extremely wonderful at kind of moving things around for me and being there for. I mean, sometimes if I'm going with the kids, if I'm traveling with the kids, she's the one going into my house and feeding my cats, or I get my friends doing it too.
Okay.
But there's times that she has done that. So I'm very fortunate to have somebody there, whether it's going to be him or his wife. I'm just extremely lucky to have at least somebody there on the other side, understanding that life isn't about this regiment and it has to be completely flexible, and people need to be understanding, right? But yeah, traveling is 100% in my MO, and it will happen at least once in a year. And I didn't I've never done it before. I only started actually doing it when my my second was born.
Really?
Yeah, and I was dying to escape life because
it's not easy.
It's daunting, and weather is daunting, and having 10 months of winter is depressing.
That's the Canadian way, though. We know this. It's
right.
If it's not winter, it's like August.
Yeah. So, I find a way. I don't know how. $500 vacations at Cuba, or, not expecting too much as long as there's a beach and hot dogs to eat.
It's still an escape, it's still good.
Absolutely. But it's important to me, so I make it a priority.
Okay, cool. And do you have any places on the wish list right now that you're trying to hit up somewhere in life, somewhere in the next decades?
Well, I am 100% a beach bum. I love heat. So I don't need to necessarily go to places in Europe and stuff like that. However, I wouldn't mind. But in the short term, it's Punta Cana. In a couple days. Yay.
Nice.
And we're trying for Philippines in the next year or two. So that will be kind of like a big month vacation. And I want to do it while the kids are still young and not complaining teenagers that there's too many bugs.
Right, yeah. I remember traveling with my parents to Jamaica when I was about 14, and I'm sure it was not amazing company all the time.
No, I'm sure. The kid vacations are much more different than the adult-only vacations.
I can appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, so definitely make time for. I make time for both kinds of vacations.
Okay.
So I'm not too selfish with it,
I wouldn't expect that whatsoever.
Exactly.
It seems like balance is a key part of what goes on in your world, to make sure that your girls get what they need, but also that you get what you need, so you can give your girls what they need. There's a lot of circular speaking. It is,
but it is the circle of life, my friend.
Wow, you really pulled out that reference.
Yeah, you got that right.
Okay, I'm dead. I'm good.
Yeah, no, but balance 100% a key. 100% in anything, kids or not.
You're talking to the guy who will go home, put his kids to bed, and stay up till the crack of dawn working on stuff.
I don't know how you do it.
I'm dumb. I'm just. There's no rhyme or reason to how I do things. When people
I hope
ask
you're spoiling your wife. I don't know. She better be getting something.
I hook her up. Life's good. I have to ask her when I get home. Am I doing all right? You need out of this relationship? Well, she's still stuck around, so I'm like, I guess it's okay.
Okay, good.
We're going to a wedding actually at the Azul Fives in Mexico next year.
Ooh.
So that's gonna be good. And we're going with other kids, which is gonna be even better.
Oh my gosh, you might want to leave the kids behind all the time.
Well,
or you might come back with 2 more. I'm just kidding.
For those who can't see what's on my face right now, it's an expression of, oh my goodness, no, I'm not ready.
Don't wish that.
I don't need any more right now. Anything else you want to chat about while you're here on Chatting with Casey?
Nah, this has been fun. I love it.
Thank you.
I've been a little nervous with it, but it's been great. My nerves went away right away.
No, it's always nervous for the first time of getting on there and doing it, but you can find a groove, and as long as you are either with a friend or a host that is not intimidating or asking you really uncomfortable questions, usually turns out all right.
Awesome. I'm glad I was here, and I'm hoping your listeners love this.
They better. You guys better love this. Make sure to like, share, rate, and subscribe and all the things, because otherwise then it won't grow. And we all want it to grow.
We do.
All right, well, Jemmie, thank you for the time.
Thanks so much, Casey.
And we'll have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Bye.
All right, guys.
See
Later.
ya.
So let's not kid ourselves. The black community's history with the LGBTQ community has been rocky at best. I remember being back in the club in the early 2000s, and people were dancing to T.O.K.'s Chichiman because it was a hot joint at the time, until they understood what the lyrics meant, and yeah, let's just say it didn't go over well. We have a number of cultures, actually, that see homosexuality as a sin punishable by death that are woven into the mix. So it's unsurprising that so many of our gay friends have had to hide who they are just to survive. And that's something a lot of us take for granted. As a straight black man who's arguably walked the most traditional path you could even find in 2018, I don't have many gay friends I regularly talk to. And don't get me wrong, I 100% support gay rights and hope for a day where they no longer have to fight for their human rights. But my life just doesn't intersect with those of the gay and lesbian friends I've had over the years as much as it used to. Which is why I'm extremely happy that my friend and fellow entrepreneur Drekken Pownz gave me so much of his time to share his story as a gay black man and the life and identity he's carved out for himself because of it. We sat for a good while just chatting it up, so I had to split this into a couple of episodes to get it right. But don't you worry, the final product is worth the wait. So without further ado, my chat with Drekken Pownz, gamer, businessman, and the embodiment of someone chasing after his dreams. I hope you enjoyed this chat as much as I did, because it is a great one. Okay, y'all, I'm sitting here with a good friend of mine, Drekken Pownz. Drekken, how are you?
I'm doing fantabulous.
Excellent. That's even better than fantastic. And is it less or better than fabulous?
It's actually better than fabulous. Fabulous is like the standard. Now, everyone wants to be fabulous. Right. Everybody's fabulous today in 2018.
Yes.
Right. No, I'm fantabulous.
Okay.
All right. Just a little, a cut above.
All right. Cool. Well, yeah, so this is kind of, I feel like this is one of the
long-awaited episodes.
Well, it's long-awaited, but I feel like this is an episode of Chatting with Casey that's maybe in its purest form. Only because I've told everyone through the blog and everything that it's me talking to people about their passions in a place that's their most passionate or is their favorite place or whatnot. And you've brought me to one of those.
Absolutely.
Where are we? Tell me about it.
Wait, does no one take you to their favorite place?
People have taken me to their favorite places, but it hasn't been like, you know when you feel the synergy is all there and it all comes together correctly?
Yeah.
This is one of those moments, only because I know you decently well now and everything, and I could tell when something's just like gelling well, and I feel like this is one of those moments. So
absolutely. So this is Casa Loma. We're just outside. We're in Spadina Park, just outside Casa Loma, where we can see the castle. Well, it's actually not really a castle. It's actually just a very large house.
It's like a chalet.
Yes. So it's a very large, but people call it the castle. And then to our left is the actual city, or south is the actual city of Toronto, overseeing it from this hill.
It's really nice. Nice view.
I love this place. This place is my favorite place.
Very cool. So I guess calling Casa Loma a castle is like calling Blue Mountain a mountain.
Absolutely, exactly.
Is that how we roll out Ontario?
Absolutely. But I love Casa Loma because of the history of it and the story behind it. And it's a very audacious story. Henry Pelham owned this place, and he built it on top of this hill so you can overlook Toronto, almost as like a big f you. Can we say that on this?
Probably not. But
Okay,
it's
F
okay.
you.
I can.
You bleep
there's
it?
bleeps I can
Okay,
use. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You know, a big middle finger to the aristocrats of Toronto, because he was an industrial man, made a lot of his money in industry, like oil, if I remember correctly, or coal, and he built this castle. Kind of back then, Spadina itself wasn't very developed, so it was basically a castle on the hill.
Right.
And he built it to look like a castle, using as much architecture from castles that he's studied as possible, to pretty much say to people, it's like, I have money. That's what he did. And he had money. And it's just a very sad tale, because the city in the end actually is what did him in. They raised his taxes during the war to something like $26 per square feet or something like that, and it ended up bankrupting him.
Wow.
So they did it as like a wartime measure, was the guise, but it was political. It was purely political, and they did it as a message to show him that no one's above them. So
wow.
Yeah.
I can really understand why you vibe with this place. Oh my gosh. Everything you described. Okay, I'm going to give everyone context on that one so you just understand where I'm coming from. Drekken is like a no BS kind of guy who will just basically like, here's why you're failing. Here's why this is wrong. Here's why this is right. This is what you should repeat. Like anytime you need advice that's actually going to just be like bare bones, this is exactly what you need to do, you talk to Drekken. He could be like best friends with you, he'll love you and still like, you know, put you to task, as I've seen a number of times.
I stole the term merchant of truth from Kevin O'Leary.
Okay. Yeah, it's true. It's true. But yeah, we're talking about him being Henry Pelham, who now I know the name from bottles of wine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I believe they're actually the same. I'm not sure for the Henry of Pelham estate, I think, is connected.
Okay.
But it would be such a weird coincidence if it wasn't the case.
I think we can Google that later.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I can see him being an industrialist and having this like, you know, vista of a city to overlook and just being up there on a hill. It just makes so much sense to the level of grandiose, the grandeur that comes with being Drekken.
It's so audacious. It is so audacious. And I love it. I love the audaciousness of building. Can you imagine building a castle in like the 20th century? Who does that? Like, when was the last
Audacious
castle
people.
built? It's so only audacious people will build a castle in this. Toronto was booming then. It wasn't a metropolitan as it was then, but like it was still a city of up and coming, and it was this man built a castle to overlook like the peasants.
Right.
Right. So,
I like how you said the city did him in though, because I feel like that's something that hasn't changed about Toronto.
No.
It's doing people in all the time.
Politics is politics. You know, Game of Thrones obviously is a fantasy, but there's still some real truths in there.
For sure.
Some real truths, right? So 1 minute you're on top, next minute.
So let's talk about your passions. Outside of, you know, eventually owning Casa Loma, which I know is something way down the road, and making it your own home to be in, or at least to rent out. I don't know which one you want to do. Rent out, not to live in?
No.
Okay.
I'm renting it out.
All right. Outside of that, you're big into StarCraft.
Absolutely. Well, StarCraft is the home I've made it in. Like, you know, I'm big into like a lot of things around StarCraft and what's
so
StarCraft
it's more of the tool than the end goal.
Absolutely.
Okay, tell us more.
I'm incredibly passionate about bringing people together. That's like people who are passionate. I enjoy bringing that together, and StarCraft was one of those fits that I had to figure out, because I've been doing tournaments and competitions in esports for good over a decade or more. And to one degree or another, and it was just trying to find the community that appreciates the work that I put in. Okay. Right? Because I started off with Smash Brothers, and then went to Street Fighter, and then did a CS:GO and did a bunch of other communities, and then I ended up in StarCraft. And that community just really embraced what I was doing and my vision, and appreciated the work. And I became passionate about being passionate. Right? So
that's okay though. I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, you realize that it's not your passion and your vision isn't tied to one thing. Yeah. And that's important, because people often forget that you being you don't have to be directly correlated to just one thing. No. You have a key set of skills, abilities, visions, etc., and they have to be transferable.
Absolutely. And it's the threads though. Everything has threads, and you just watch the threads and make sure that they align with your values and your principles. And it really doesn't matter the rest. The rest is fluff as long as your values and principles are intact and those things align.
Okay.
You can be anywhere.
Yeah.
And do anything.
For sure. And you're doing, and in that in mind, I mean, I know you're doing your show on Twitch. You just got a co-host for that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I just did it, wrapped up yesterday. We did our episode where I interviewed a creator of ArcStar. He made a mod for StarCraft, which Blizzard piloted as their premium on their premium mod store. I just did air quotations, which is a new initiative that they're doing, selling premium mods to the community. So I interviewed him live. I brought him to my studio, aka my apartment, and we did an episode live, which was
very nice.
More live, I guess, in person and live. So it was a fun time. Really good.
It's a very nice apartment, by the way. I've been there once and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Very high ceilings.
I love the high ceilings. I'm all about space. I love space, architecture, different architecture.
Okay.
Casa Loma.
This is a very thematic episode, as you guys can tell.
Absolutely.
So, one thing I like to do when I'm talking to guests is talk about past, present, and future. I'm not going to go so deep that it's going to make you weep. But,
I don't mind.
Well, if you want.
Like you ask the questions. It's your show.
Okay, cool. So, I assume Drekken Pownz isn't on your birth certificate.
Well, actually, ironically enough, it is on my birth certificate.
Oh,
now.
really?
Now it is.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the meaning behind it?
What's the meaning behind the
Drekken Pownz? We can go into the entire history of how it's on your birth certificate, but I'm wondering what the meaning of Drekken Pownz is.
Okay, so Drekken obviously it's not my birth name. I wasn't born with the name Drekken. But I did become Drekken.
Okay.
It's symbolic in its meaning, in the sense that I ended up growing up in a very restrictive home, very conservative home, very sheltered life. I didn't know very much about the world, and I'm gay. So being a gay male, black male in a Christian family is like a huge no-no. Huge no-no in every which way, to my parents, to my father specifically. And there was this element of being somebody else. I was to be many different people to everybody else except to me. And growing up, I had a hard time figuring out who I was and who I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be the person that takes over my father's business. He was an entrepreneur, and he wanted me to take over his business. And to him, though, I was very much like a tool. I was the son that was the cheap labor, and I could be used at any time as he sees fit to do whatever work he needed, and he didn't have to pay me. He didn't. Living in his house was payment enough. Was his. And then when
sounds familiar, not in my life, but I get that. I heard that from a number of sources.
Yeah, I learned a lot about who not to be from him. I'm very grateful to my parents for the fact that I learned who not to be by them. As far as people go, they're not good people, but I learned about some of the darker parts of the world from them, and it definitely grounded me. So I know this is kind of a roundabout way getting to the story of how it came to be Drekken, but growing up, coming into my adult life, I very much wasn't sure of how to act around people. I very much had a chip on my shoulder. I was always angry. And I thought myself very much invincible for a good portion of a while. So I started my first business, Pownz Gaming Center, at the age of 21, which, to me was a big feat, because my goal was to be rich. That was my goal, to be rich and to show my father that I had value. Right. That because he disowned me, he disowned me in an email, sent me an email disowning me.
Yo, that's cold.
Yeah, sent me an email disowning me that I wanted to show him that I was worth something, that I had value, by showing him that I could make it in this world. And the gaming center was called Pownz Gaming Center, and everyone would call me Mr. Drekken, Mr. Pownz. Actually, they called me Mr. Pownz, because we had a culture of having your gamer tag on your shirt. All of our
Okay.
employees had a gamer
Yep.
tag. I knew all my customers' gamer tags I had 2,000 customers, and I knew each one of their gamer tags by heart. And we had this really great family culture. But at the time, I was very young, and I didn't see that for what it was. I was very focused on the money, very focused on how to get mine, right? I had built this as a means to an end. But unbeknownst to me, and much to my chagrin, that a community had sprung up underneath me of people who had met their families. I mean, met like their current girlfriends, their best friends, their life partners at my place.
Wow.
And when the place closed down, because we had to close, it was like I worked like I'm a workaholic, and a lot of my passion and my aggression came from wanting to prove myself.
Okay.
Right? That was a lot of my motivation, was to prove myself. So what ended up happening was when the place closed, I was just heartbroken. I was just like, I was emotionally damaged. I was disheartened, right? And I didn't even go to the closing. I let someone else handle all that closing stuff. Yeah, I didn't go to the closing. I let someone else handle it.
Okay.
And I got really kind of depressed. And then after a while, though, I got an email or got messaging people who would send me messages in Facebook.
Okay.
And they told me how much the place meant to them, that the place was, how much it changed their lives.
Wow.
And in that moment, I had realized what I had built.
Okay.
And that people weren't going to the LAN center because they wanted to play, Xbox 360 or cheap entertainment. They were doing it because they met people that really meant a lot to them. And I just didn't know what business I was in. I thought I was in the cheap entertainment business,
Yeah.
but I was in the community building business. Yeah. And that was a revelation to me. So when I started to really dig deep into myself and figure out who I was, I realized I wasn't obligated to carry my parents' legacy, their expectations of me, who they wanted me to be, and I could let that go. And like in this world, you can be whoever you wanted to be. And to me, the people at that LAN center were more of a family to me than anybody in the world. So to me, I carry the name Pownz as a reminder to me of to be true to what it is, right? To remember what business I'm in. And Drekken, as is the name of the character I always dreamt of in video games, right? That was my gamer tag, but he had this persona of someone who was bold and someone who was confident and someone who wanted more. So I decided to be that person.
Okay.
And so I changed my name to be that person. So I projected it. That's who that person was. That's who Drekken Pownz was. And then I just lived him.
Yeah.
I lived and I became him. Much like we do when we play video games.
Of course.
When we play video games, we superimpose ourselves onto our characters. I just superimpose my character onto myself.
Very poetic.
Yeah.
Do you think that with more time you would have, come into that understanding with the Pownz Gaming Center and everything, and understood, what it really represented? I asked that largely because I know my dad. He used to run a restaurant, and he closed it after 20 years. Yeah. And literally, the only time I've seen him cry in his entire life was the day that he was closing it, and all of his staff that he'd help them grow up and figure out their lives and everything for all the years around them were all surrounding him. That's the only time I ever seen him drop a tear. And he's been through several grandkids and 2 weddings, and I'm like,
Absolutely.
all right, Dad, all right. But it's something that it's the difference between the almost obligatory love and emotion you show towards your family members doing whatever versus this thing you've invested your soul into and everything, and seeing it come to a conclusion of any sort. So if it had gone on longer, the real question is, if it had gone on longer, do you think you would have more transformed it, or been in a different place with it?
No, I think that it ending at the time that it ended was important for me and my at the time I could definitely not see that. That was beyond my scope and vision at the time. But its closing helped give me a wound for me to be aware. It woke me up, right? The closing of it was a deep, deep wound.
Okay.
And it caused me to reevaluate myself, everything. And I think that had it gone on longer, I would have been I would have been arrogant. And I know many people see my personality now and they assume that like naturally there's an arrogance to it, but it's grounded. It's grounded on something much, much, much deeper. And those wounds is kind of like where that wound from losing the land center was that moment where I'm like, I realized I was mortal, that I wasn't Superman, that I could bleed, and it caused me to be aware of everything, right? Well, at least everything at the time that I had done. I reevaluated my relationships, reevaluated like my ambitions, why I was doing things, right? So I think I don't know if I would have been able to get that if it had gone on longer.
I think I'm starting to understand a bit more why we connect the way we do, only because I know people confuse my confidence for arrogance often enough as well. And it's more, I don't hide anything when it comes down to like this, but I, had a nervous breakdown when I was 16 from just overworking myself and having too much on my plate and being too young to deal with it all.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of who I am today is from building myself up piece by piece from that, and getting to a point where I'm just very deeply understand myself and who I am, and that's where my confidence comes from, knowing what I'm going to do in any given situation, knowing what exactly I'm trying to go for, because I've dealt with every facet of Casey Palmer, so this is what is there and left to do in order to be who I want to be.
Absolutely, and it's exactly the same, because when I lost my land center, to me, working hard was an element of me showing the world that I could do everything, that I could do anything. And when I ended up closing the land center, it was because I overworked. I was a workaholic, and that I'd run the candle on both ends to the point where it was over. Like the candle couldn't handle anymore, and I had collapsed. Like I touched what I like to call as bottom. Right? It's not like rock bottom. It's more like this moment where everything is dark. And you, like, if you ever jumped in like a pool and like in the deep end and your hand kind of just grazes the bottom of the pool and you realize you've like, that's the bottom. And that's what it was. It was just like being underwater and just grazing the bottom. So, but I had a choice. I could just stay there, which seemed like the easiest way. And that was very tempting to just stay at the bottom of the pool.
Yeah, for sure.
Or I could pull myself out, and it took, and I'm sure we can get into some of it too, like it wasn't an easy path to get out,
right?
And I did, and once I did and I emerged, it was one of those things that very few things kind of fazed me, because I felt what bottom looks like, and nothing that comes to me in these ways feels like that level of a wound. So
all right, should we continue like the emotional side of things,
or
you
want to
go to lighthearted?
No, we can. Up to you. This is your show. I can. I don't know how much tape you have or how long you want to go, but I have stories for days. So
well, that's a good segue, because you mentioned one involving a turkey.
A turkey?
Yeah.
Oh, did I mention that? Oh, I did. I'm trying to remember. What was the context? Do you remember?
I think it involves Thanksgiving, waiting in line for one.
Oh.
Something along those lines.
You know what? Actually, that's a perfect segue. You're right. This actually comes next chronologically.
Really?
Yeah. So it's
well done.
Yeah, it was actually well placed.
Yes.
The way it worked from there is after the land center closed, and I decided to rebuild, and I changed my name. I was newly, freshly built name. I wanted to start my life again.
Okay.
My relationship ended. I had a long-term relationship. I was engaged.
Wow.
Yeah, I was engaged to be married, and it was an impromptu engagement. I thought it was one of those things that would make my life better.
Yeah.
But I'd done it out of panic and out of sort of a drastic thing.
Okay.
In an effort to kind of figure out who I wanted to be, I evolved into someone a lot softer, I guess, and I don't know my ambitions, wrongfully thinking that it was my ambitions that got me to the place that I was.
Right.
So I shedded them, and I was a very different person at that period of my life, trying to figure what to do and who to become, and I had taken a job, a regular people job, selling debit credit machines, and I had a boss. I had a boss for the first time in like the longest time.
Oh boy.
I know, right?
That does not sound like you at all.
I know. Oh my god. Yeah, and I was a sales powerhouse. I killed it in sales.
That sounds like you.
Killed it in sales. But I had these peaks and valleys because I had a really hard time controlling my emotions. So my boss took me out for lunch one day, and he sat me down and he said to me, he goes, what's holding you back, right? What's holding you back? And I told him the story of what happened with my land center and what it meant to me and how I felt like I had failed. And he goes, well, failed who, right? And then I explained to him about my father and being disowned.
Yep.
And then he goes, well, tell me about your father.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told him about my dad. And then he said to me, he goes, your dad doesn't sound like a good person. So why do you care about what he thinks? Mm-hmm. And it was just like, I don't know. It just, it was one of those revelations that I didn't know. I didn't think about it. I didn't know how to answer it.
Okay.
And that was sort of the starting point where I decided, okay, I'm going to build myself in a different direction. And I changed my name, and my relationship ended. My engagement ended. And I thought the world was done. I thought that, I lost my land center, lost my relationship, and there couldn't be anything more to this. And my aunt had said to me, she's like, why don't you move to Toronto? She's like, you're a big city kind of person. You're more suited to Toronto than Hamilton.
Okay.
And that's where you need to be. And I came to her and I was crying and I was like, oh, I don't want it. I can't afford Toronto. Toronto's expensive. She's like, look. Just find a place. Like, Toronto's not like, you maybe can't live in the downtown core, but there are other places around there.
Of course, yep.
And I said to her, I'm like, I'm just blubbering on this couch because it was just the week of breaking up. Wow. But I had to move out. I had to leave. Like, I had till the end of the month, which is 2 weeks. And she's like, look, all right, you're hurting now, but do what you have to do.
Okay.
Do what you have to do. And she's like, look, let's look together. And we looked at some places, and I can only afford $400 a month. Mm-hmm. And in Toronto, that doesn't go very far.
Right.
But she brought this one place up, and she goes, hey, look. As I'm laying on the couch, and she's on the computer. She's like, look, free room and board, right? Meals extra. Spacious apartment room. The only caveat is, and I'm like, what is it? She goes, you have to clean the house naked.
Well, damn. Okay.
And I just burst into tears. I'm like, I don't want to be a slave.
This took an unexpected turn. Okay.
Yeah. And she's like, look, trust me. And she's like, call it, find out. Like, you don't have a lot of money, but if you got to go clean somebody's house and be naked, you got to do that. That's what you got to do. Just get into Toronto, take one foot at a time, and go to the next place. Reluctantly, I called. It was taken. Thank God.
Okay. Wow.
It was woo. I thought you think it was gonna be like a 12 years of slave story.
I did not know where this was going next.
But no, but it made me realize that, like, it was actually that hurdle of making that call of that place, because I was willing to do that. Like, if it was available, I would have taken it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it wasn't. And I ended up getting this place in Scarborough. And I was bent on becoming an entrepreneur again. I didn't want to work for somebody, but I had sold all my stuff from the land center, all the assets, and I was determined. Like, I had a timeline to figure out what I was going to do of about a month and a half to figure out what I was going to do before I ran out of money, and I had to do something else. I had to figure out, like, I was out of options. I had to start a new business, and I tried very hard to not sell the core components, which were the Xboxes and the monitors. I felt like I'd start something else with those remaining equipments. And I ran out of, time had run out. I was down to half a month, and I ended up having to sell that core equipment.
Right.
To pay for rent for the next month. And then I ran out of money. So I had to come up with a backup plan. Mm-hmm. And that plan was I had to go on social assistance.
Okay.
And I had that was definitely for me one of the hardest things I have ever had to do, because I had to swallow my pride.
Yes.
I had to swallow my pride and go and get social assistance. I had to go on Ontario Works and get, that monthly sort of those meetings and go to the meetings and tell them I'm looking for a job, which I wasn't. I was trying to start a business, but I couldn't tell them that because they wouldn't give it to you. They won't give you that if you're trying to start a business.
Yeah, I heard that.
They definitely won't give you the Ontario Works unless you're trying to get a job. And it got to this point where I realized you can't actually survive on Ontario Works.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like some money, but it's not enough money. And
right.
then I realized that I didn't have enough money for food.
Wow.
Food was, I couldn't afford Ontario, like on Ontario Works payment, I couldn't afford food and to live in my apartment. So I went to the food bank and I waited in line. And I remember I hovered around it for like the longest while because to me it was like this spiraling thing where like now I'm on Ontario Works and now I'm in the food bank line.
Yeah.
And I was like, how I've fallen. One minute I was this entrepreneur who had started his business at 21 and I was like the hot shit. But now I'm in this food bank line waiting to get canned goods. And it was one of these stark realities where it was a reality, that was the hardest part to realize.
Right.
It was a reality. It wasn't this bad dream that I was going to wake up from. But to realize that there were some people here that were kind of proud to be there. And in the sense that, it was to them, they didn't have to work, right? And they were getting free food and stuff like that. And I realized, like, I'm like, is this like, am I going to be, my biggest fear was I was going to be trapped there. Like, I was going to be in this cycle, in this system that I was never going to get out. Like, the more rungs I went down, the more I was into the system.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest revelations was when Christmas time came around. Christmas came, and I went to the food bank as regular, and they gave me a whole turkey. Now, to give it context, normally they give you like canned goods.
Yep.
Like they don't give you meat or anything. They don't give you any of that kind of stuff. It's like it's all non-perishable stuff.
Right.
So it's like canned goods, like bread, and like it's stuff that's not gonna last long because it's usually donated from a grocery store because of close to expiry or whatever
dates and stuff. Yeah.
So the food is not it's not garbage food by any means, but it's not like the best kind of food or anything, right? You're eating like canned cranberries for lunch sometimes, right? So they gave me this turkey, and I just sob. I just take this turkey and I just cry all the way home. I just carrying this turkey home because A, no one's ever given me a turkey. And B, like this turkey is like the best meal I've had in like 2 months.
Wow.
And I take this turkey and I Google how to cook it. I'd never cooked a turkey, and I learned how to cook that turkey. And I cooked it, and it was but I was by myself. Like I had this whole turkey by myself, and I realized the situation I was in. Christmas Day, by myself with a turkey, crying, eating alone. I had this little LCD Christmas tree, which I ate the turkey beside. And, if you imagine they're in this basement apartment and, you're listening to Christmas carols, Christmas Day, eating a turkey, it feels like things can get pretty dark. It can feel incredibly dark.
Yeah.
Right? So it was one of those moments where I had to kind of figure out how am I going to change this? How am I going to turn things around? Right. So
how did you turn things around? Because you're here today.
I was gonna leave it as a cliffhanger.
I mean,
first.
you could, yeah. I could just end it here and go to like a next episode. Like, hey, I have enough material for 2. We might do that actually. We'll see. And that's all for this week, folks. If you want to hear more about Drekken's epic tale of feeling his way through the darkness to eventually becoming the man he is today, you're going to have to come back next week for Chatting with Casey episode 7. But in the meantime, I'm off to handle my biz. My time as the only dude at the 5th annual Strut Conference last week reminded me not only is there a ton of opportunity as one of the only men in my space, but also a responsibility to do all I can with these opportunities. I'll only get out of the journey ahead whatever I choose to put into it. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure to like, rate, share, and subscribe. And until next week, I hope the world gives you everything you need to be exactly who you want to be. Bye-bye.